Broadcasting from the Civic Cypher Studios, welcome to the QR Code, where we share perspective, seek understanding, and shape outcomes. He, the man on the microphone, he goes by the name of Q Ward.
And that's Ramsey's job. People, don't let him lie to you. All that stuff he says, he's looking in the mirror. I just work here.
I just said you're on the microphone this time. But listen, he's an amazing human being, and I am happy to host this show with him. Today we are going to be sharing some stories with you. So be sure to stick around, because later in the show we're going to talk about Drake's lawsuit against UMG proceeding. In the past, we've had some thoughts about Drake having a lawsuit in the first place, and he seems to be doubling down on that. So we're going to share our thoughts there. We're also going to be talking about Timbaland going AI. So, you know, what does this mean for creativity, for human creativity? Q's going to share his thoughts with his clapback about the big, beautiful bill. We're going to talk about the Ohio governor deepening his anti-trans position in the state, which we feel is very unfortunate, but we're going to share that with you. Another unfortunate story we're going to be talking about is people posing as ICE agents, kind of taking advantage of the loose framework around what is appropriate for, you know, those who police us, and using it to take advantage of people and hurt people. And I mean, what do you expect when you have people jumping out with their faces covered up and aren't identifying themselves easily, and far from your neighborhood, you know, friendly neighborhood policeman, of course. And we're going to start the show off discussing the myth of black on black crime. This is something we've talked about before, but it's come up recently in a conversation, and so we thought we'd revisit this one for you. So all that and so much more to stick around for. But before we get there, it is time, as always, to start off with a feel-good feature. So today we're going to share a bit from the Black Information Network. You can check this out at BINnews.com. This week marks the 5th anniversary of the launch of the Black Information Network, the first and only 24/7 national and local all-news audio service dedicated to providing an objective, accurate, and trusted source of continual news coverage with a Black voice and perspective. What began on June 30th, 2020 has grown into an essential source of trusted journalism, storytelling, and community engagement. Over the past 5 years, the Black Information Network has achieved remarkable milestones, surpassing 19 million monthly listeners, a reflection of the BIN's growing influence and strong connection to its target audience. Expanded BIN news content to over 100 broadcast radio stations across the U.S., making BIN one of the most widely distributed Black-focused news audio platforms in the country. Deliver news coverage tailored to 65 of America's largest Black communities, with reporting that reflects the local realities, perspectives, challenges, and triumphs. Quote, Black Information Network has become a trusted and indispensable voice for Black communities in America, said Tony Coles, president of the Black Information Network. Goes on to say, in just 5 years, we've transformed how local and national news reaches our audiences. We are giving a voice to the stories that have gone untold for too long. We are providing freedom to journalists to pursue meaningful reporting, and we're just getting started, unquote. Black Information Network listeners invites... The Black Information Network invites listeners, partners, and community members to join the celebration across its network of stations, podcasts, and digital platforms as they reflect on the past achievements and look ahead to the next 5 years of groundbreaking journalism and community impact. Q, you want to say your thank yous for the Black Information Network?
Well, more than just thank yous, man. It's just important to point out that they created a space for Black creators, for Black voices, for Black ideas, for the Black plight, and for Black celebration. And I'm, proud that we get to be a part of that team. And it's been a massive blessing for us.
Absolutely. All right. I like that. Okay. So, one day we'll get to a point where we can share stories that are human stories. But until that day comes, we appreciate all of you listening to us as we tell stories that might go untold. And because we're in this position and we try to be responsible with the platform that we have, often we find that we have to add perspective and share stories from a decidedly Black perspective. Not always, but for the most part, we will jump on those before anyone else. This is one topic that we've had to address before, as I mentioned. So I'll start us off, and then Q, you jump in right afterwards. I'm going to share from the SPLC. For those unfamiliar, this is the Southern Poverty Law Center. You can find out more at southernpovertylawcenter.org or splc.org. And I'll just share. The Justice Department's statistics crunching arm just blew up a whole stack of white supremacist myths about the nature of interracial crime and violence committed by minorities. In a report released Thursday titled Race and Hispanic Origin of Victims and Offenders between 2012 and 2015, the DOJ's Bureau of Justice Statistics found that a majority of most violent crimes are committed by people who are the same race as their victims. Indeed, the rate of white-on-white violent crime is found to be about 4 times the rate of black-on-white crime. White supremacists frequently like to manipulate crime statistics in order to claim that non-white minorities, particularly African Americans, are far more crime-prone and the source of most violent crime against whites. Indeed, it is a core belief that this is the case. The BJS study demonstrates plainly that this is simply not the case. Some 57% of crimes involving white victims were committed by white perpetrators, while only 15% were committed by blacks and 11% by Hispanics. Black crime victims fell along similar racial lines, with 63% of the crimes committed by black perpetrators, while 11% were committed by whites and 6.6% by Hispanics. Overall, the BJS reported, quote, the percentage of intraracial, that is, same race, victimization was higher than the percentage of interracial victimization for all types of violent crime except robbery, unquote. Moreover, it explained the rate of white-on-white violent crime, 12 per 1,000, was about 4 times higher than black-on-white violent crime, 3.1 per 1,000. The rate of black on black crime, 16.5 per 1,000, was more than 5 times higher than white on black violent crime, 2.8 per 1,000. The rate of Hispanic on Hispanic crime, 8.3 per 1,000, was about double the rate of white on Hispanic crime, 4.1 per 1,000, and black on Hispanic crime, 4.2 per 1,000, in terms of violent crime. This is consistent with previously collected data, including a national crime victim survey in 2000 that showed 73% of white violent crime victims were attacked by whites and 80% of victims were targeted by blacks. This pattern is even clearer in the category of murder. Okay. As promised, Q.
As promised is hilarious. I was having a discussion with someone recently on a very different topic from this, but I think the same point could be made after, a couple of back and forths, which is typically how long it takes for people to get their rehearsed, stolen from social media talking points off. And then they end up with no, foundation for their position at all that's based in fact. You get to a point where, okay, now we're talking about data, we're talking about statistics, we're talking about provable facts. And this person didn't even pretend to have any. Their rebuttal to me was, it's not about facts. It's about rhetoric and narrative. And it was like a mistakenly transparent and mistakenly obvious because they thought that was like a gotcha moment for them. And I concluded in that moment, oh, okay, so then the conversation's over. Like I thought we were doing something completely different.
So, we're having a conversation about facts.
Yeah. Once we've now determined that the facts don't matter, oh, okay, you can talk with yourself or your mom or your family or whatever.
Well done.
Has remained true on this exact topic for as long as this topic has existed. The idea of black on black crime being framed as a reason why Black people should justifiably be mistreated and show up in such a disproportionate way in prisons and on the wrong side of law enforcement and criminal justice. So, of course, Black people are more prone to violence. So that's why we treat them this way. And that's why they're, such a high percentage of the prison population, not because they're over policed, falsely categorized and placed into circumstances that are, impoverished, where trying to survive is turned into trying to be a criminal or prone to be a criminal. So the statistics show that it's grossly misrepresented. And that by sheer number, white on white crime dwarfs black on black crime. But as we've now been taught, and I think we need to stay in our place, Ramdas, because it's important for you to understand, it's not about facts. About data
this whole time. I didn't know.
Rhetoric and narrative.
Okay.
And even though we can kind of laugh at that, when you say it again out loud, it's like, oh, that's how those people actually feel.
And
that's how you get almost 80 million people to vote in direct opposite of their own best interest and then celebrate it
Sure.
because they no longer even process actual fact. Narrative, rhetoric, and vibes, I guess, is what they plan to survive on, as the hyper wealthy are kind of looking to get rid of poor people, like erase them, like literally. So using these slanted narrative, rhetoric, vibe based race arguments with regards to crime and the way that it's kind of investigated, policed, prosecuted, and the way that sentencing is delivered, they would lead you to believe that everything bad that happens in this country, especially violent things, happen because of black and brown people. And the story just proves that that's far from the truth.
Yeah, and you know what? I know you know this, but in the amount of time that we've been, even longer, but certainly in the amount of time that we've been doing, this type of content, we've seen a lot of myths that we kind of grew up with. I'll speak for myself, that I grew up with, debunked by data, right? Because the entirety of my life, I was born in the 80s. The entirety of my life, black on black crime has been the way that conservatives, the right, have framed or reorganized a dialogue, reorganized a conversation to where you can't say, "Hey, look, the government should be doing this. This country owes this debt. These are the things that need to happen in order for there to be restorative justice for our communities." And conservatives will often say, well, your culture is inferior. You need to stop listening to this music. You need to stop, you need to focus on black crime before you focus on this sort of thing. And it's the manipulation of well, first off, let me say that black on black crime, black father absenteeism, a welfare queen narrative, all these things have been well marketed and well sold to the general public. And even black people, myself included, grew up thinking that these things were very much the truth. And you can find enough examples of them because, of course, this is a country with, hundreds of thousands of people in it, or hundreds of millions of people, I'm sorry. So you can find these examples, but when you bear it out in the data, black people are really not the villains in the story like we're made out to be. And rather than addressing systemic issues, these narratives that have been spun and well marketed allow this country to kind of sit behind the narrative and not really address the systemic issues that are at place. So when people look at,
seen black leaders
do the same thing,
parrot the same narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys want to blame the police, but you don't say anything when Ramses shoots Q on the south side of Chicago. It's
right. They always talk about Chicago. Exactly.
Yeah.
But the fact is that, for this black on black crime to be one of those things that exists for this long, where there is no such thing as white on white crime. That didn't exist. It was never marketed. When you say it, it sounds crazy. And then it removes, context. It removes, as you mentioned, the societal framework. It removes, a lot of the crimes that, people end up committing are based, can draw a connection to the fact that they're poor. That's it. And so if you address the poverty, you address the crime. But rather than doing that, they have this narrative that insulates them from their responsibility. And so it's been a challenge, but here we are. And that sort of challenge leads us to the challenges that we're having now with all of the immigration, ICE raids and all that sort of stuff. Because, when it comes to like racism, it's often a rinse and repeat sort of a thing. So, I'll share this with you listening. Q shared a story with me. This would have been, yesterday? And he said, he just casually mentioned these people impersonating ICE agents going around raping people. And I was like, oh my God, did you actually say that? And he's like, yeah, that's true. And I know Q to be a journalist, so I knew it was true, but then I had to prepare to do this episode. So I'm like, hey, look, we should talk about that on tomorrow's show. And when I looked it up, I figured there was going to be one example of this. And it turns out there's a lot of examples of it. So before I read this and pass it to you, Q, I want to share something that I saw on social media. So this isn't credible at all because, you know, if I can't cite it, then I won't claim it to be credible. But I did see an interview. It was a sort of one of those comedic leftist journalists trying to have a gotcha moment with the MAGA crowd, right? And so this leftist comedic journalist, or whatever you want to call him, maybe he's a TikTok journalist or something like that. But he puts a mic in front of this guy who's wearing like he's wearing an ICE shirt with a vest, and it's like he looks like an ICE agent just because he's wearing the outfit, right? He's got his face partially covered and all that sort of stuff. And he's interviewing. He's like, okay, so why are you dressed like this? And he's like, man, I'm just, supporting ICE or something. And you could find the video and you might be saying something differently, but this is what I remember from it. Again, this is not journalistic. This is just my impression. Okay. He's talking to the guy. He's like, yeah, man, you could just go and buy this outfit from like a store and just wear it. And you could wear it to Home Depot and like scare people. You know what I mean? And it was really gross what the guy was saying. And the guy that was doing the interviewing, obviously the comedic element wasn't there for him because it just felt like a little icky. It felt extremely gross. But he uploaded it. I saw it and it just lived in the back of my mind until yesterday when you said that people were impersonating ICE agents and actually inflicting harm on these communities. So I'm going to share this and then give this to you, Q. I got 3 stories. They're really brief. Bear with me. The first one's from The Guardian. Police in Southern California arrested a man suspected of posing as a federal immigration officer this week, the latest in a series of such arrests, as masked plainclothes immigration agents are deployed nationwide to meet the Trump administration's mass deportation targets. The man, Fernando Diaz, was arrested by Huntington Park police after officers said they found a loaded gun and official-looking documents with Department of Homeland Security headings in his SUV. According to CBS Los Angeles, officers were impounding his vehicle for parking in a handicap zone when Diaz asked to retrieve items inside. The police said among the items seen by officers in the car were multiple copies of passports not registered under the name of the individual. NBC reports. Diaz was arrested for possession of the allegedly unregistered firearm and released on bail. The arrest is one of several cases involving people allegedly impersonating immigration officials as the nationwide crackdown on undocumented immigrants intensifies. Okay. Next up, ABC 7. Leon Howell, 43, was arrested Thursday and charged with rape, robbery, assault, burglary, and criminal possession of stolen property. Officials say a 51-year-old Hispanic woman was approached near Montague Street and Henry Street in Brooklyn Heights as she waited for a cab around 11 a.m. on Tuesday. The victim told detectives that the suspect claimed to be an ICE agent and directed her to a nearby stairwell where he punched her and tried to rape her. The suspect snatched a chain, cell phone, and a purse before he took off. He never displayed any identification. All right, finally, this is from idahonews.com or CBS 2. A man in North Carolina allegedly impersonated an ICE officer and threatened to deport a woman if she did not have sex with him. Carl Bennett Jr., 37, was arrested in Raleigh on Sunday for the incident at a Motel 6, according to an arrest warrant obtained by WRAL. Police stated Bennett, quote, threatened to deport the victim if she did not have sex with him and displayed a business card with a badge on it, unquote. Okay, Q.
What could go wrong, Rams? Plainclothes, masked law enforcement agents en masse with no IDs, foregoing due process, violating people's civil rights, human rights, privacy, breaking the law, trampling on the Constitution with impunity all over the country, allowed to, because they feel like it, harass, arrest, detain, beat up, and deport Black and brown people because that's what they own today. What could go wrong? Why would a racist person with a gun want to dress up exactly like those people and do the same thing? Why on earth would we even expect something like that could happen? Not in this country, not the land of the free, home of the brave, not the country that is the land of liberty, liberty and justice for all. That there's no way that would happen here, right? There's no chance that if you set up a system where plain clothed men with masks, sunglasses, and hats on, with no IDs, with no warrants, with no probable cause, could just show up to places where poor black and brown people live, or just black and brown people in general. Don't think because you got some money that you're immune. There's no way that the system that would allow something like that to happen with impunity, not just allow it, but encourage it, not just encourage it, but employ it. There's no way that nefarious bad actors would see an opportunity to kidnap, beat up, harass, sexually abuse, rape, and traffic people. Like that wouldn't happen. Like, not in America. There's too many guardrails. There's the courts. There's law enforcement. There's, to serve and protect, and there's the Constitution, and there's the three branches, and there's checks and balances, right? Like, that stuff wouldn't happen here, and we wouldn't possibly like go back to like potentially like slavery, because they're picking people up in mass and deporting them to prison / concentration camp / where you go
Alligator
to work
Alcatraz
for free and get terrorized.
Mm-hmm.
And then they treat alligator Alcatraz, since we said it. I wasn't going to, because I didn't want to be a part of their marketing machine, but here we are. They sell merch. They sell t-shirts. They're doing commercials. They're cheering. They're celebrating it. Because white people en masse in this country are now showing that that's where their solidarity lies, with white supremacist Christian national beliefs, not with their fellow Americans, not with women, not with immigrants, not with the poor, not with any marginalized, underrepresented group, not with minorities. Heterosexual, straight Christian white men, which sounds crazy to say because they're not Christians. They just claim to be, and they've weaponized the teachings of Christ to get people to now say out loud that kind of to heck with it. Anything our Lord and Savior Donald Trump says is right. Well, he's saying that gas is $1.90 where you live. Is it? And that person standing at a pump that says $4.50 is like, well, yeah, of course. He said it, so it's right. And we're seeing people of all ilks, from every socioeconomic background, every religion, every denomination, every ethnicity, every race, line up and volunteer to kiss the ring and to bend the knee. I'm still very confused how this person, not how any person, because there have been powerful bullies through all of history, but incompetent, weak, small men. I've never seen that type of man to people who have more than him in the way of resources, in the way of influence, bow to him and cowtail and tuck their tail and shrink and allow themselves to be used and manipulated to bully, belittle, oppress, and take from those of us that have the least. So there's no way a system like that would fail us so monumentally that our women and our children can't walk down the street. Hell, we can't walk down the street. If 5 men jump out and there's just one of us, what are we supposed to do? Especially if they have guns. And now we don't even know if we can defend ourselves, even if we had what we needed to do so.
Well, unfortunately, these aren't the only vulnerable populations at present. I'm going to share this about the governor of Ohio, someone who better do better. This is from Cleveland.com, straight out of Columbus, Ohio. The budget bill signed by Ohio Governor Mike DeWine includes language that escalates the state's anti-transgender position, formally setting as state policy that only 2 sexes, male and female, are recognized. Quote, these sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality, the budget language says. DeWine signed the budget bill about 11:15 p.m. Monday. The non-budgetary provisions will become effective in 90 days. The policy, which takes a page from President Trump's book, will affect not only transgender Ohioans, but also intersex people who are born with variations in their sex characteristics. The Cleveland Clinic estimates that 1 in 100 Americans is intersex. DeWine let stand other restrictions on transgender Ohioans. Unlike previous Ohio laws that primarily target minors, the new budget provisions will impact transgender adults. On healthcare, the budget bans the use of Medicaid funds for mental health services that, quote, promote or affirm social gender transition, unquote. Another provision prohibits government entities from placing menstrual products in men's restrooms in public buildings. But he also vetoed others, detailing in a veto message issued after 2 a.m. on Tuesday. Among those was one that would have cut funding to youth homeless shelters that promote or affirm social gender transition. Quote, the DeWine Trussell administration agrees that no government funds should be granted to youth homeless shelters that promote social gender transition. The reality is that a homeless child has been through a horrible experience and likely needs to be met where that child is at emotionally. This is what he wrote in his veto message. Goes on to say, if a shelter has to call a homeless youth a pronoun that is incongruent with that youth's gender to get this person into a shelter so the child won't freeze to death, it needs to be done without fear of getting funding clawed back. No Ohio youth should be denied shelter from a facility that receives state funds, he wrote. Research has shown that LGBTQ plus youth nationally have a 120% higher risk of experiencing some form of homelessness. During the 2023-24 school year, an estimated 25,550 homeless students were enrolled in Ohio schools. The governor also vetoed language that would have forced public libraries to place materials related to sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression in areas not easily accessible to minors. The governor said the state's existing obscenity laws are sufficient in keeping harmful materials out of the hands of minors. Quote, no child should have access to inappropriate materials or to materials that their parents or guardians deem inappropriate. In Ohio, we have strong laws on obscenity and material harmful to juveniles, and the DeWine Trussell administration expects those laws to be enforced. Okay. So this is, to me, maybe this guy's walking a line. I don't know. But the thing that really jumps out to me here is this sort of the sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality, right? This is something that a lot of people will say because this is the knowledge that most people have, or at least this is the most convenient framework in which to place, gender identity, sex, what have you. It's easier for people to, I don't know, mix any other kind of recipe than when it comes to like human beings. We like our human beings nicely in neat categories, right? If I had a baby, I as a black man had a baby with a woman who was white, the system that exists would categorize that baby as black, right? I go along with that because I have to live in this same societal framework as everyone else, right? However, that baby would be made up of my genes and the mother's genes, right? So that would be two, I guess, racial groups, which, race is not a scientific fact, but, for this example, we'll just go along with it. And, people have their problems with making that make sense. Well, the same is true here. I remember learning something long before the transgender conversation was really a thing, the way that it is now. I remember hearing about how people could be born with both sets of genitals, how people could be born with different gender identities, so forth and so on. Back when I was in college in the early 2000s, long before this was, Fox News was talking about transgender youth athletes every 15 minutes, like that was the great, ailment in this country. And with this Ohio governor kind of further creating that separation, I think it makes the world a little bit more dangerous for people who are probably more vulnerable than they've ever been. And as a result, he better do better. So.